Hi there, I'm Katy Rose, and welcome to the Rooted Reinvention, a podcast exploring the real-world journey of reinventing who we are without burning out or burning our whole life down. I teach people how to make lasting change by melding my Masters of Neuroscience and my Cognitive Therapy qualification with common self-help tools, spiritual concepts, and my personal experience. Because being yourself doesn't need to feel so damn hard. To get more information on podcast episodes, please visit rootedreinvention.com/podcast. It's very pretty. Hi there, welcome to the Rooted Reinvention, and this is episode 1. Today I wanted to talk about the name of this podcast and kind of what it means, why it exists, and why it matters. So if you don't know me, I'm Katy Rose. I'm a psychological practitioner, and I specifically help people who are driven to reinvent themselves to do so without having to kind of eat, pray, love their life. So without having to, quit their job or leave their husband or that sort of thing. It's about reinventing from the roots of who you already are. And I do this by melding sort of science. I have a bachelor's in psychology, a master's in cognitive neuroscience, and a qualification in low-intensity cognitive behavioural therapy, mixed with the kind of, the woo side of things, some of the more intuitive practices, general self-help tools, and then my own experience as a reinventor myself. So Rooted Reinvention is really about reinventing yourself without having to start from scratch, without burning yourself down, without trying to find a new you. It's actually about finding the you that's beneath all the shoulds that life has given us and told us is how things work. And I particularly went on this journey down the scientific route, down the academic route, because the self-help tools just weren't working and there was something missing with the intuitive, spiritual side. And I'm quite a scientific, logical person, and I wanted to know the science behind it. And having taken a few degrees in sort of psychology and neuroscience and understanding how we as human beings are wired and how our mind and our psyche work, kind of understood a little bit more about why these things aren't working and that we don't need to start over every single time, because a lot of the tools that we need, we've just never been taught how to use. And that's really what I want to do with this podcast, is to look at personal development, evolution and reinvention, but without having to start over, and actually just to use the tools we already have. I wish that a lot of the tools that I now know were being taught in schools to just general people. A lot of the tools that I use also come from a mental health kind of thing background. So I've been a mental health practitioner and mental health consultant in various roles across the last 7 years. And a lot of the tools that we use to help people recover from mental health difficulties, actually, if we taught those skills originally, they could help us in all kinds of facets of our life. Again, that's exactly why this podcast now exists, so that I can try and get these tools and techniques out to as many people as possible, because being ourselves should not and does not need to feel so damn hard. So that's a little bit about what this podcast is going to be and sort of how it got the name. It's about reinventing yourself from your roots. It's about kind of growing and evolving. Also about having that steadfast, sort of solid foundation. So even when storms come, trees are kind of held strong by their roots. It's about finding that inner capability, that inner strength, that inner fire. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. And the main reason that this podcast is going to explore these things is because they're not really explored elsewhere in this way. There are so many self-improvement podcasts out there. Trust me, I listen to most of them. But there is something about having taken the academic route, having tried the spiritual side. So I'm attuned in Reiki healing, and I used to teach meditation practices. And I do believe that our intuition is something that we should be paying more attention to, but again, we're never taught how to listen to it and how to hear what it's saying. If we were taught these skills in school, I just think that we would be a much more cohesive society of fulfilled beings, for lack of a better terminology. And that's really why I'm here, to kind of guide you through how to help with your own personal reinvention, whether you want to level up your life, whether you want to kind of just expand on something and evolve as a person, whether or not you're actually having a real issue with an identity crisis at the moment. Then just knowing this is why my brain has such a, focuses on the negative. This is why my brain is working the way it works. This is why I'm finding it so hard to quit smoking. Whatever it is that's going on for you that you want to change about yourself and who you are, I'm hoping that this podcast will be able to bring all the different facets together so that you have the complete answer. And I'm not saying this is a quick fix. I'm not saying things are easy or that they are simple, but they do not need to be as complicated as we make them. So hopefully this was at least a useful introduction to you. We're going to be looking at the neuroscience, using some cognitive therapy techniques. As I say, they've kind of come from mental health, but I think that they can be used before or without needing mental health support. And they can be helpful for anybody to know just how to control our thoughts, how to manage difficult emotions. These are things that I think we can all benefit from knowing. And I'm just so frustrated that no one ever taught me, and I took 3 degrees to have to find out just how to kind of look after myself as a human being. And yeah, as I say, that's my motivation for this, is that we deserve to know this stuff, and this should be free knowledge. And I'm so angry that they didn't teach us this stuff when I was in school or when I needed it. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about motivation. And I'm picking that one because it's the most common question I get in my coaching practice. How do you stay motivated? How do you keep progressing when you don't feel like it? It's just kind of one of those first steps that people get caught up on. And again, it's because we haven't been taught about it. So I'm not going to go into all of the science in lots of detail with all the terminology, but essentially we do have a chemical in our brain which is related to motivation. And we can create more of that. So we can stimulate our brain to release dopamine, which is our reward chemical, that then it basically gives us that supply of motivation. So dopamine is something when you have drugs, when you have chocolate, when you feel fulfilled, you feel like you've done something right. That's the thing that's kind of giving you that feel-good boost, which then motivates you to do it again. Whether you're a rat in a cage, pressing a button, pressing a lever and getting a bit of food and it sparks the dopamine, or whether you've just finished writing out that essay or that PowerPoint presentation for your boss or whatever it is you're going through, and you kind of feel like, oh my goodness, it's done. I'm so glad that's done, and I feel good that I've completed it. That is the sensation we're looking for, because that will build motivation. And the best thing to build motivation, particularly if you're not feeling motivated in the moment, is to take small baby steps towards a goal, doesn't really matter what goal it is, and then to complete that step. So it might be you wash up 1 fork, because the idea of doing the washing up is something that I definitely struggle with. You will learn through this podcast, washing up is not fun in my books. And therefore, just having that baby step and just completing that first task, that is chemically building motivation ready for later. So any baby steps you can take that move you forward, that make progress, that will help you to have motivation sort of ongoing / for later on. And quite often I find that once I've washed up 1 fork, I will wash up all of the cutlery. I'll usually then stop because plates are different in my head, but it does give you that almost motivation, that momentum to move forward. If you're struggling with motivation, my top tip for this episode is for you to find 1 baby step, small baby step. If you are trying to motivate yourself to exercise, can you do 5-star jumps? If you're trying to motivate yourself to do the washing up, can you wash up a single teaspoon? If you're trying to motivate yourself to write that essay, can you write the first sentence? If you're trying to motivate yourself to, to complete a 5K, can you go put your running shoes on? Like literally completing that first task and building that momentum will chemically help build that sense of motivation. It will give your brain the physical components that it needs in order for you to then feel motivated for the next steps. And that's the tidbit I'm going to leave you with for this episode. Thanks for listening, and as always, you can find out more at rootedreinvention.com. Take care, remember you are more capable than you often realise, and I'll see you next time. Bye!